All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jason Flame. Welcome to the Master Motivation Podcast. And it is 1 o'clock here in California, but it is 4 a.m. in our guest's country. Our guest today is Mr. George Fourie. He is a former computer programmer turned online marketer who found his passion for martial arts by following his son's martial arts journey. He works with a new group of martial arts school owners and community called Partners, where the focus is generating more income, more impact, and living the lifestyle that martial arts provides. To date, George has helped his martial arts school clients sign up more than 7,800 students to the value of $11.7 million. Pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. Thanks for being on the
Well,
show today.
thanks for having me, Jason.
Yeah, absolutely. Once again, I just got to give you props for getting up bright and early and being ready for us. Can you tell everybody actually exactly where you are in the world?
Yes, so I'm in Perth, Australia, which is if you had to compare Australia to the United States, it's probably the Los Angeles, San Diego side. The difference, though, is where you've got a lot going on in California, we're like the most isolated city in the world. So it's a
Mm.
big city, but it's us and then small towns up and down from here.
Gotcha, gotcha. Well, interesting that you compare Australia to the United States and where you're at because I'm in the Ventura County area in Southern California in Moore Park, and so I mean, if you put Australia right on top of the United States, we're kind of in the same spot. I actually have a friend, an old client, Ross Liddell, not Ross Liddell. I'm sorry, Ross. Oh man, now I'm blanking on his last name, but he has a school out there, and I worked with him for many years. Anyway, an
Not
Aikido
not
school.
not Ross Cameron. No, no. Okay,
I'm I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna look it up. I
okay,
can't
cool.
believe I'm blanking because we both used to love the Raiders and talk about it all the time. And he was actually one of my first clients when I joined the Maya program. But let's talk more about you. Let's talk about the reason that you got involved in martial arts in general. Is you mentioned your son's journey in martial arts. So talk about how that started.
Yeah, so I I've never done martial arts. A bit of just round trip backstory. I'm from South Africa. I lived in the States for probably about 2 years, and then ended up in Perth, Australia. And so new parent. My son was about 4 or 5 years old, and I saw a couple of guys in a shopping center, and I thought, oh, that looks pretty cool. And yeah, so walked up and we had a chat and enrolled him into classes, and uh, I was just fascinated by watching him do martial arts. So for me, it was the link that I created is I've done a lot of personal development stuff, and for the first time, I saw for me personal development in a physical form, just with goal setting and everything that was going on. And so that really just inspired me to keep pushing him, training and training and training. And
Hmm.
yeah, and that's really where I developed my love for martial arts, was just sitting on the sideline watching. Never considered doing it at that
Hmm.
point.
Interesting. Now, how old is your son now?
Well, now he's 16.
16. Okay, so this
Yeah,
was 11 years ago.
yeah. This
Yeah.
it's been a while. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, very cool. And by the way, I just want to give a shout out to Ross Taylor. I'm so sorry that I forgot
Taylor,
his
yeah,
last
he's
name.
in
Ross
Perth.
Taylor. He's right there in Perth.
Yes.
Great guy. Super. I mean, we had a lot of great conversations back in the day. But you've never done martial arts. In all the years that your son did martial arts, did you ever get involved in any way?
Oh yeah. So I was. So the interesting part is I started helping martial arts school owners with marketing before I trained martial arts.
Mm-hmm.
So again, just a bit of the backstory there. I've been doing digital marketing and that stuff probably before Facebook was really the driving force of
Mm-hmm.
things. And I watched a few things they were doing for marketing, and I, I just one day shared and said, "Look, I've got a few ideas. I think it might work." No initiative to get a client or anything. I just wanted to share a couple of ideas, and they applied a few things, got great results. Um, Asked me to do a few other things, they got results, and then it just became a thing. And so my son was training, I was helping the school, and it must have been a couple of years in. Somebody asked me, "So why aren't you training?" Which was, it sounds like the obvious question, right? But
Mhm.
when I heard it for the first time, it was like I went through this excuse station, right? Well, I'm
Mm,
too old, body's broken from XYZ. I was 36 at the time. I'm 45 now. And so, okay, well, you know that thought that you say no to it, and then but it sits in your mind, and you're like,
mhm,
okay, but hang on, let me just give it a go. And and then I gave it a go, and cliche, but I was hooked. I was hooked at like this is cool.
mhm,
Yeah, and then I started doing karate. I started doing Muay Thai. Yeah, so I got right into it. I stopped karate and Muay Thai probably about 2 years in. I had a big hemorrhage car accident back in South Africa, and
mm,
when I spoke to a neurosurgeon, he said, "Look, punching in the head for you is probably not a good idea."
mhm.
And that's when I started jujitsu. And so I've been doing jujitsu ever since.
Awesome.
So yep, so 100% still train at least 3-4 times a week.
Good. Good for you. Now let's back up a little bit. You're originally from South Africa, then you lived
Yep.
in the United States, and I don't think that you said where yet, but then you went from the United States to Australia. Take us through, maybe just a little bit of your childhood and teen years, and how and when you moved from each location.
Yeah, so well, I grew up in South Africa. I lived there my entire life, really. Part of me always wanted to explore the world. Um, and up until grew up in South Africa. My passions were drumming, surfing. That was kind of my thing that kept me busy. I started entrepreneurship young. I studied computer programming. That's where it all really started.
Hmm.
And halfway through studying computer programming, I realized computer programming. I don't know if we're going to gel together for the end of days. And so I started selling computers to friends in my class. And so that's where the entrepreneurial thing started. And so when I left my studies, I had these two career paths. Like, well, I'm going to go work for someone. I'm going to give this entrepreneurial thing a go, and I did. And it struggled, and it was great. I hit great success, and I also crashed and burned really hard. It was the year 2000. I remember it because everybody was in panic about computers
Right,
disappearing because of the
right,
big turnover,
right, right, right,
and
right.
yeah, and so um, that's yeah, the business died. I had a lot of debt, more the ego crush than anything, first entrepreneurial disaster. And then I got into sales. It was look in South Africa. South Africa is a beautiful country, love it. But it's a very tricky country to survive. If you're either a sophisticated lawyer, attorney, or you're doing your own business, or you're in sales. So you're driving your own income. It's not that there's tons of career opportunities available.
Hmm.
Um, so so I got into sales. That was the default profession, and I probably learned. I mean, I learned so much from sales just because the human interaction and dealing with people, and yeah, that became my life. And then I had this car accident, and that was the wake up call. Um, and I'll quickly tell you why. I had the car accident. I broke my neck actually, and had a hemorrhage. It was a Friday evening. I woke up the Sunday. I had 20 people looking at me, and I was like, okay, what's happened here? And so I was lying in hospital. I was there another week, 2 weeks, and a doctor walks into me, and he looks at me, and he's like doing a checkup, and he laughs. And I'm like, why are you laughing? He says, well, guys like you, we normally just don't operate on. I say, how come? He says, well, because you're dead in 2 weeks. And he just walks out. And that's all he said. And and my laugh went from like it felt like the life just sucked out of my body. That's and if anyone you or anyone has had a near death experience, you'll know what I mean. But it was just the reality check of reality checks.
Hmm.
And that's when I decided, well, in my recovery, that I gotta I gotta live life, and I've got to get out of here,
Hmm.
out of South Africa. And um, I managed to get a job on a cruise ship, selling holidays on Carnival Cruise Lines. selling other cruises on Carnival Cruise
Mhm.
Lines, and that was my ticket out. And so I went to New Orleans, New Orleans. Yeah,
Nolans.
New
Depends on who
Orleans.
you are and where you are.
Okay. Yeah, so that was my base, and then moved over to Los Angeles, San Diego, Alaska, and so that was about 2 years all up. Um, and that, yeah, so that took me to the States, and then from the States, I moved to Perth, where my son was born, and I've been in Perth pretty much ever since.
All right, all right. Well, I think the first time that we ever met face to face was in San Diego
It was,
at a martial arts event. And so we've kind of kept in contact on Facebook, and kind of follow what you do, and you're doing a lot of stuff on TikTok right now. So why don't we just kind of jump ahead a little bit, and
yeah,
because
cool.
you're one of the ones that I probably recognize the most out there, doing a lot of TikTok videos and just kind of promoting your product, more or less. So talk about that for just a minute.
Yeah, so TikTok, I'm probably a late comer to it. Well, I feel I'm a latecomer to it. If I look at people already really established, but I tend to observe things, and then to a point where I can't ignore it, and then I realize, okay, I've got to be serious about this.
Hmm.
And one trend that I've noticed is really a common trend right now, which is that reels and short videos are the go. Um, and so real short videos, 15 to 30 seconds, that's kind of where things are at. I always look at things when I look at a channel. My first approach is, can I repurpose what I already do? That's where I always lean to. And so I just jumped in, and I looked at some of my podcasts that I do, and I wanted to just split them up and use those as reels. And then I just decided, well, hang on, let me just do a bit of both. And so I just took content that I had, and I just condensed it, which was kind of fun, and it's really high paced. And yeah, it's getting good traction, so to speak.
Hmm.
So it's getting good traction. I'm still early in the game, but I think it provides good value and a good introduction to what you do. And I think, yeah, short video is definitely not something that can be ignored. In fact, if you look at Facebook and you look at Instagram, somebody commented the other day, "Where's the photos? what? Where's the photos on Instagram?" Um, and you can see that Facebook has also changed their entire focus. If you're doing anything organic, then reels and short videos is where the attention is at right now.
Hmm. Yeah. As I was a consultant for Maya for many years. I remember early on, actually doing a presentation, and I think what I was trying to drive home was, making the best use of our time. And one of the topics that came up at that time was that we spend so much time on social media, and that it was, in my words back then, a waste of time, because you're scrolling, or watching videos, or whatever. Little did I know, and this was probably back, I want to say mid 2000s. And so that was when I did this presentation. Then flash forward, several years later, I'm doing presentations on how social media can help you save time, and have a stronger marketing presence, and be able to get out to the masses so much easier. Because I started my school in 1994, and in 1994, print ads and doing flyers on cars, and just like the whole guerrilla marketing was such a focus then, at least for myself and for the schools that I was involved with. And then of course here comes social media. So you mentioned that you were a computer programmer before the social media really hit. um, what do you remember, and what changes did you see over time, and what did you kind of latch onto that you were like, okay, this is definitely the real deal?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll probably transition from like computer programming to like just entering into the digital marketing space, because that was really different. And I don't think I don't think everyone appreciates just how easy it actually is today. Because um, when we got started with this type of thing, it was all about, well, Google Ads. And to get Google Ads running, there's none of these fancy page builder tools. You had to have websites, and you had to drive traffic to websites, and then analyze the stats. So you'd be buying data, a lot of it, all the time. um, because about 100 clicks will give you an idea of if something's working or not. So it was always just a question of throwing money at stuff and analyzing. And I must admit, I took a hard route, and that's why I'm an advocate for coaching and shortcuts. And the only shortcuts is really to get info from someone that's done it before. Um,
Hmm.
I mean, there's books and things, but if you think of the fast track, it's,
Hmm.
hey, someone's done this, let's just grab it, model it, adapt it, and here we go. And yeah, so Google Ads is where we really got started, and really try to understand marketing. And I this was actually just when I moved to Australia. I didn't have a job yet. My son was about to be born, and so I started dabbling in digital marketing, and I was just throwing money at Google, trying to sell some ebook. Um, and I think I was down to my last $300, and I was like, all right, well, if this is gone, I think I'm done trying to figure this out. And I was down to, I think it was $20, and I made a $37 sale. Somebody in the United States bought an ebook from me. I've never met them, seen them. They bought the ebook, and seeing that $37 in my PayPal account it was magic. and and a few days in, I got the second sale, and it was up another $37. And all of a sudden, I understood a conversion metric that if you can put less dollars in and get more dollars out, that's magic. And it's probably one of the first things I share with school owners is you've got to have like a sanity number. You know, everyone sometimes looks at marketing cost as a cost, but it's only a cost if there's no return. So if you know that, well, I spend X dollars, and I'm prepared to spend $50 to $100 to acquire a student, and a student is worth 1,500, 2,000 more, 2.5 grand per year, well, that's a pretty metric. So it's just really dial it in. So I think my thinking really changed from, I was always the guy focused on, it's shifted a few times. In the beginning, it was all, look, if you want business, you need a good website. Um, you need a good website, you need traffic to it, and so forth. And then when social media adapted, we changed our strategy a bit to simplify it, because we realized that places like Facebook don't like to actually send people away from it. So if you can have the conversation within Facebook, you can get away with cheaper marketing budget,
Hmm.
and it's way easier to just sell a conversation than to sell a click, really. Um, so so yeah, probably not the question you asked specifically on the computer programming, but that's really what I saw from that time. Just how things have evolved,
Hmm.
and yeah.
Cool. Well, we got a couple of viewers watching. I just want to, give a shout out to you guys. If you're watching right now live, please just post a comment. Let us know you're there. And also, if you have any questions, we can go ahead and take any questions. But next topic I want to talk about is, you talked about being an entrepreneur, and what you're doing now. You do to grow your business. Where Let's go all the way back. Where did that come from as a younger teen to a young adult? What made you want to work for yourself versus working for another company? What made you a stronger entrepreneur?
I mean, if I go back, I think a lot of it was just the freedom aspect, just the freedom aspect. And again, looking at where we grew up, it was the pathway. The pathway was either going to be, you're going to work for the man, and life is going to suck. In my views, just having that form of control. And the way we grew up at school, for example, um, uh, South Africa had a big, uh, for us, it was very command and conquer. I don't know if you know what that means. Command and conquer is very, you do what I say because I said so. Not because I've got justification why, but because I told you so. And that's kind of how we grew up at school. There was always this form of control. And I think it just broke me down that I didn't want that form of control in my life. And and so how the entrepreneurial path developed was just not, I didn't want that kind of hold on my life and people
Hmm.
dictating where I need to go. And and so after school I had to just take a break and clear my mind. And my parents said, look, well, you got to study something, you got to get an education. And I don't know, I want to place, I want to surf, I want to play drums. but and eventually I said, look, I actually want to do marketing. And they said, well, look, uh, probably the advice my parents shouldn't have give. I love them, but they said, look, everybody does marketing. Do something else. It's like, so I found the computer programming, and so the computer programming was a choice that there's a technical side of me that I like tech, and that's probably where that came from. But to be honestly, I when the first day I started studying computer programming, I walked in and I literally asked the guy next to me, "Where do I put it on?" um, so my understanding of computers were not good, and and again, just being in that studying system, and probably also feeling a little out of my league, because here's guys that they've been tapping computers for since 5 years old, and here I come and I'm asking where to put the thing on. Um, so I wasn't a very good programmer in the sense of the other programmers. Um, but then again, I built a whole restaurant system for restaurants, and so that worked out pretty good. But it was somewhere in there that I just realized, I don't know, I just like this business transaction, this uh, entrepreneurship and the opportunity that it provides, and without without the cap and being told, where your limits are, really.
Hmm. Yeah, and you talked about having having failures and crashing and burning big at one time. What was it in you, and what drove you to move to the next thing? What helped pick you back up? What did you set your sights on that made you just focus on a new direction?
Yeah, so I worked in a, after I lost my business, I was probably not in a good place. And I think a lot of it is just age and experience. Number one, I mean, it was early 20s, so just not having life experience. And then probably from being the talk of the town for good reasons to now the talk of the town for the not so good reasons. And so again, just not knowing how to deal with ego, really, and just feeling crushed, and looking at my bank account, which is just in negatives, and I've got debt collectors calling me. My phone is ringing off the hook day to day, day to day, day to day. And so I I felt like, again, because in South Africa, like, you got to take opportunities as they arrive, and I felt I just missed the boat with that 3-year gap of not focusing on the programming, that it was going to be a hard path to go. And so I looked for jobs, and I found a commission sales job. I got fired from the commission sales job. And probably the person that made one of the most impacts in my life at that time was a guy named Zane Ringquest, who was a sales manager. He was a year younger than me, and I remember walking into the sales interview with him, and I really try to fake the interview, and he was just so sharp. He just came at me, hard hitting, brutal,
Hmm.
and it put me so in my place. But I also saw the success he was having, and it just readjusted my viewpoint. And looking back, it was really just a test to see if I was going to stand my ground with him. Um, But after that interview, I was just like, I've got to work here. Like, I've got to learn what this guy knows. And yeah, and that got me into sales. And that picked me up. That definitely picked me up. Um, that got me going back into life, and
Hmm.
working without a limit, working with in a sales environment where my income was kind of my drive. And that's probably the first time where I really got into motivational books and picked up Zig Ziglar's book, Tony Robbins' Awaken the Giant Within, and I just got on this educational path. And that's probably a lot of those foundations have taken me to where I am now, where I, I, I place high value on personal development, meditation, and just constant growth. Just evolving, um, always looking at the next thing. What is the next thing? How can I evolve
Hmm.
as a person and an entrepreneur?
Yeah, and let's take a break from that for just a second and talk about, how do you balance your life with, the work life balance. We hear about that a lot. Because sometimes, for me, like I've been a martial artist for almost my entire life, and of course, with different businesses, work is work. But I mean, I love coming to the martial arts school. I mean, I'm here now. I'm usually here in the morning. I'm here for several hours every day, and I love being here. Sometimes it doesn't even feel like work, but I know that I have to have those other things. I love to be in the gym. I love to be out, uh, Spartan races and doing different activities. What you talked about drumming and surfing. What are some other things, or maybe just talk about some of your other hobbies, passions that keep you, um, feeling like you have something else to strive for.
Yeah, right now the focus would be it's either surfing or jiu-jitsu. Those are the two things that keep you grounded.
Hmm.
Um, Surfing, jiu-jitsu, I know I can rock up on the mats and there's going to be people. So surfing is always tricky around here because it's always, well, what are the waves like? Um, so it's always a juggle between the two. But for me, early start is important for the most part. For me to get work done, I focus on sprints. I got this old school. It's called a time timer, but
Hmm.
if you turn it, it does this red thing, and it's yeah, pretty cool. But that really keeps me going, and I know if I can nail 3 sprints a day, I'm doing pretty good. Um, One before everyone gets up, the next one sort of mid morning. Sorry about that. It'll stop. There we go. It's gone. And then one in the afternoon. And if I can do those 3 things, that that keeps me focused because working online, it comes with its distractions. 100%. So there's always too much to do, too many things to look at. Sorry about that. I
That's okay.
I think I'm going to take the battery out. Hang on. All right.
So tell me,
My
explain to me. You mentioned sprinting. Are you talking about like going out for a run? And so
Let
talk to me
me,
about
let,
that.
yeah. Let me explain. So a sprint is a taking one project in a 50-minute sprint and then taking a 10-minute break. So it's kind of looking at, all right, well, here's a list of things that I've got to get done,
Hmm.
and I need to get this one thing accomplished in the next 50 minutes. So it's looking at what task can I take that's going to make the most impact, and that 50 minutes is about doing that one task until it's done.
Hmm.
And so 50 minutes is really just a way to cramp down space and just focus. And it comes, a lot of it comes from the programming type cycles where they're working like work on the scrum boards and things like that, which is just really project management.
Hmm.
But yeah, so 50 minutes is just an ideal time to really get something substantial done. The goal with it is you put the timer on. I can see the timer. I mean, you can use any online type timer. Um, and when the clock strikes 50 minutes, you don't finish what you're doing, you drop, and you just walk out. So changing environment is really important.
Hmm.
Um, that keeps the business going. One thing that I've done recently, which um, I've got two phones. One is a social media phone, and I test our mobile app on this one, and then I got my normal phone. Um, I've I felt that it was just a necessary to do. So the social media phone is here. If I need it, I log in. But then I do have my assistant that would post all my content regardless. So that keeps me focused, because one thing, it's so easy to just wake up in the morning and check Facebook. Um,
Hmm.
Now it's pick up the phone, open a Kindle, and start reading instead. So that's been a that's taken the anxiety levels down. Just not having not having
Hmm.
social on my phone. Um, yeah. So, but back to the physical activity. Yeah. So surfing, I find it's just good for the soul. Uh, Being out in the water, and no tech, no digital devices. Yeah, I love surfing. I've done that since I was 12 years old. So I've surfed all my life. And then jujitsu as well. Jujitsu, yeah. When you're doing
Yeah, no,
jujitsu, there's no time to think of anything else.
that's right. That's right. That's right. Well, so when you were talking about the 50-minute sprint, I always find for myself, and maybe you feel the same way, is that when you limit your time to get something done, you tend to get a lot more done in a short period of time. Whereas, I one of the first things I do in the morning is check my calendar and check my to-do list, or I write out my list of these are my top three or top five things that need to be done by the end of the day. And I always make sure that my workout comes first. Workout to me is I get out of bed, I shower, I'm in the gym. It's the first place I go, because I know if I go to the office, I may work, a little bit longer, or I may, pick up the phone and check messages or check social media. But it's when I tell myself, okay, I got from this time to this time to knock out my list, that I get so much more done than having the whole day to get it done. So yeah, I don't use a timer, but I definitely do have a time reserved for me to get that work done. And it's just it was a game changer, because I used to, when I was young and immature, I would think that getting to work or getting to the office at 8 o'clock in the morning and not leaving the karate school until 9 or 10 at night, like I was working hard, right? But I wasn't always getting as much done as I wanted to get done, because I was just kind of going and going and going. There's no set time. So yeah, that really struck a chord with me.
Yeah. So training for me is, I try and get everybody out the house, and when kids are at school and everyone's done, and then I can get some work done. I normally have my coaching calls in the morning, which is US time, nighttime, so that
Mhm.
typically works. And lunchtime is 12 o'clock is my jujitsu class. So I always train in the day. That just works out for me the
Mhm.
best.
Right. So you've been training in jujitsu for how long now?
8 years, 7 years, eight
8 years.
years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what is your favorite thing about jujitsu, or just martial arts in general? What's the best takeaway for you?
For me, it's it's a place that grounds me, humbles me. Um, I like the physical aspect, the contact, um, but it's humbling. Jiu-jitsu for me, like I had surgery I tore a tendon on my arm, so I was out for oh 14, 15 months. Um, that really played on my mind in a big way, more than I thought. I try to keep my discipline up just with standard exercise, but not having the martial arts as the foundation, it I really struggled to keep that going. And so just being back, I really value that aspect so much more right now. So yeah, just for me, especially getting older, every day on the mats, the mats just don't lie. You go to the mats and you either you either dominating or you're not. And not that I see everything as a contest, but internally you assess how you're doing based on everything else, on everyone
Hmm.
else. And if there's guys that are younger and fitter and up and coming, you're climbing the ranks. You got to always
Hmm.
be on form, and so it just keeps me grounded. And
Hmm.
knowing if I don't put in the time, it's yeah, it will show on the mats. Um, so yeah, I just enjoy the contact. I enjoy it. Keeps my mind clear. And for jiu-jitsu, I just love the problem solving aspect to it. Um, just having a few good rolls a night and just driving home and thinking,
Hmm.
oh, what could I have done different? What could I've done there? How could I've approached that? And then
Hmm.
just doing the research, and then all right, well, it's back to the drawing board. It's just forever learning, forever evolving.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's for yourself. Now, what about martial arts did you love watching? I have a son who is 17, so pretty close in age, and I've watched him. For me, it was the opposite. I had done martial arts my entire life. When my son was born, I couldn't wait to get him on the mat. A couple years old, and he's out there doing his thing, and now, he's into it more than ever, and I've seen a lot of growth in him as a person, and help him grow into a man, and the work ethic and the goal setting and the discipline, that he takes from martial arts. I'm sure that you've seen the same thing. What are some of the best parts of martial arts and watching your son grow?
Yeah, just shaping his way of thinking, the confidence, the confidence aspect, um, and it's really transitioned him into this whole career of fitness and well-being. So, I mean, every day, uh, not so much martial arts anymore, but evolved into fitness as a career.
Hmm.
So it really set a good foundation in a direction for him. But in the early years, really just what I really appreciated was just the goal setting, and the instructors always pushing the limits, and installing confidence in kids to do things that they didn't always think possible. And seeing that develop in young children, I just thought, wow, that's like every kid needs to experience experience this. Um, so yeah, for me it was very much just looking at, there's martial arts in the physical activity, and I really appreciate that. But something we always talk about with our clients is, it's not so much what martial arts is, it's what it does. And so really looking at that high level, at that outcome. And and from my perspective, really just appreciating the fact of goal driven progress, and developing the mind, and being in a positive environment. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, amongst people that are all on the same mission.
Hmm. Now, you work with martial artists, you work with martial arts school owners, and these are people that are typically disciplined and typically goal oriented and goal focused, success driven. What are some of the biggest challenges that you face working with some of the school owners, uh, that that are your clients?
Yeah, so depending at which level. So I guess if we break it down first from a marketing aspect, and then we can look at sort of where the obstacles come in. But from a marketing aspect, we started looking at the offers, like, how do people enter into the program. And then the biggest first obstacle that typically can come up in general is pricing. Um, in my experience, most martial arts school owners underprice. I see that as a common trend, and it I, it just depends. Some people are really, they've taken care of that aspect, and they've raised their pricing to a point that they feel comfortable. But a lot of the challenges I see sometimes is just um, separating the value of what they do to a point of the outcome that they deliver, and being able to charge for that without feeling like they are selling their soul or ripping people off type of thinking. So pricing could be a big obstacle. Just people getting stuck on pricing at a good premium that they can run a substantial, a great business. And I think sometimes there's a bit of a belief that you're selling out, or sometimes you hear people say selling out. Selling out what? We're not rock stars, or how do you sell out?
Right.
But you're pricing too much, etc. But every martial arts school owner that I've met that prices a premium, I'd argue that they are way better martial artists and deliver a way better service because they have the capability to invest in their classes, the instructors, and their own training, and not worry about keeping a second job going or
Hmm.
other bills to pay, etc. So that's the first obstacle, and then a lot of it just comes to uh, mindset on growth, and we see that in different levels depending on where you're at. Maybe it's getting to that first 100 students, then it's getting to the next 300 students. Then all right, well, here we're at, and we want to open the next location, having the confidence to take that step. Um, so every growth step brings up a new challenge
Hmm.
in that aspect.
Yeah, yeah. I think what I was thinking, because again, having worked with a lot of school owners, sometimes our ego is what gets in the way the most. We know what we're doing and we're not doing it, or we think that what we're doing is the end all, and hearing advice from someone else is not always taken well. Do you face that?
Yes, sometimes we have this joke in our community. There's egos in martial arts. There's no egos in martial arts. We leave the ego at the door, right? Which is a joke because obviously yeah, we all have egos, right? Uh, yeah, it can come up. It can come up that yeah, um, getting advice through can be a challenge. Um, I'm probably a lot more direct, and I say it as it is. For me starting to work with martial arts school owners, this might sound weird, but because I never was, because the way I started working with martial arts school owners, in the beginning, I I I put martial arts school owners on a pedestal in a way, and my positioning was probably a bit wrong, and I wasn't direct enough just because I valued everything I learned and everything I saw so much,
Hmm.
and over time working with clients, in the beginning I would just try and help everyone. It's like I want to be able to help, and then over time I realized there's certain martial arts school owners I can help and certain ones that I can't, and which is why I'm very selective on just how I take on clients. I want to make sure that when I take on clients, I can help them 100%. And if I feel I'm not going to be of help, I'd rather not. I'd rather not engage in business. It's to me, it's still the most painful thing if you have a great client and they leave and you could have helped them. So my stance has changed a lot with that, and I'm just very direct. And if advice can't be taken, um, then it's just not going to work. And I just call it for that. The most challenging part I find is really is calling people on their just excuses. Um, it's if someone enters your world and they say, "Hey, look, we got this big goals and we want to do this thing and we want to grow to this." Great. My job is to keep you accountable to get there,
Hmm.
and we know that it's not going to go smooth. um, so it's combating the situations that come up in between that might feel like the end of the world, and then people would like to pull out of the program. And although you want to say, "Yep, I'm cool, you're free to go," but who are you quitting on? Are you quitting on us, or are you quitting on yourself?
Hmm.
Um, my One of my coaches told me the other day, and it was kind of an interesting way to think of it. And he said to me, "Be the client you want to have." So hang on, be the client you want to have. What do you mean by that? And he actually baited us in a thread. He said, like, what don't you like about your clients? And people were saying, well, they don't show up, or they don't show up to calls. They ghost you. They just disappear. Um, they they say they're going to do something and then they don't follow through, or they want to take a break from this program. And he said, oh, interesting. So try this. Why don't you show up to every call? Why don't you not take a break? Why don't you commit? And maybe you'll set the example and see that shine through. And I thought it was interesting because a lot of times, people would want to take a break, or hey, it's summer, we need to take a break, or we need to do this or take a break. And then you'll see conversations in groups saying, hey, but everybody's quitting. I'm like, well, hang on. Are we also all quitting and expecting everyone else to behave different, or are we leading by that example? And I've got a few. One client, Michael Scott. He I just like his philosophy of that. He spoke about this in the group. He says, "Well, we just don't tolerate that behavior. Um, people, we don't tolerate quitting. If that's where you want to be, then you don't belong." Um, Very very firm on that type of stance. So yeah, I guess just to wrap that up, that's I think it all starts from ourselves. If we want our
Hmm.
students to be different, then we got to look at how we approach life, and
Right.
perhaps that starts to shine through all the way.
Well, and I think that's something that we as school owners, speaking for myself and for any other school owner, you said it, be the student you want to have. Well, if you don't train, your students don't want to train. If you don't show your love and passion for martial arts, your students will pick up on that. When the school is all about, whatever it is, that's what they're going to pick up on. So I think that is a really good point. And a lot of people do struggle with that, of being able to uh, you know walk the walk and talk the talk, that kind of thing. So it goes for martial arts, and just in life, whether it's a student, instructor, a school owner, and a mentor, a consultant. When you look at it from the other way around, it definitely helps.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're getting close to the end of time. We've had a couple pretty active. Well, I should say we've had a steady audience this entire time. Haven't had a comment just yet, but I'll give them any chance to ask any questions or just comment before we wrap up. But I guess the last question I'll finish with is, you know, what's next for you? What are some goals? What are some things that you're working on? And what advice do you have for people watching you that are setting their future goals as well?
Yeah, for us, it's really evolving how we help martial arts school owners. So I'm based in Australia, but we've got clients in Australia, New Zealand, USA, Canada, um, and so we work with a spectrum of school owners. So for us, it's really evolving what we have. Um, Better at delivery, better at the advice, the marketing, the platform that we give to help school owners, and really just simplify, making things simple and easy to adjust. There's a lot of finding programs and things to join it's not a hard thing. There's so
Mm,
many people doing so
right.
many things. And I won't just speak for people in the coaching industry of martial arts, but I think in general there's just been a big trend of people selling courses on how to be a coach instead of actually doing the long yards and learning by experience. So it's regurgitated information being packaged, and the problem with that is that you don't always get clear frameworks on how to apply things. And sometimes you can belong to a coaching program or some type of program, and you're probably better off just picking up a book because the instruction you're getting is almost at the same level. So for us, it's really how do we evolve what we do, and how do we make a bigger impact with our clients. And that comes just from simplifying processes and frameworks that uh, our clients have things to grab off the shelf and be able to implement and run. So uh, for me, we've just built a mobile app for our private community, um, and we just evolving on the things that we are doing, not adding too much, more just refining the paths for how we help our clients. Um, yeah, so we just got back onto running events, which is cool.
Yeah, well,
After
it's been a big difference, for you guys where you're at. I mean, for the United States, we had a lot of restrictions, but from what I understand, your restrictions lasted, a little bit longer and were a little bit tighter. As a matter of fact, I mean, I don't think that you guys had people really leaving the country at all. Is that right?
Well, yeah. Well, Perth was pretty weird during COVID because it's like we watched the entire world go through everything, and it wasn't here because they just shut the borders. So it never came in until really until January this year, was the first time COVID really entered. Uh, I'm going to say it too much because you, social media they like to filter the wording. You know how that goes. Um, yeah, so we didn't really see any of like we saw it all happen, but it never really happened. And then finally when it started to happen, yep, so now it's here. But now we can travel and we sort of back to normal. Whether it was good, bad, I don't know. It is what it was. We did live pretty comfortably through it all. Um, although we couldn't leave, which was
Right.
which was look, it's a big place, but yeah, it got a bit it did feel a bit claustrophobic not being able to leave. So uh, yes, sorry.
No, I was going to just say, well, last question to just wrap everything up. The other part of the question I asked was, what advice do you have for anybody watching, especially those that are looking for help, those that are looking for a company to work with? What's your advice when someone is looking for help from a coach?
Be sure that they can help you with the actual problem that you have, but also be aware that sometimes the problem is not the problem. Every martial arts school I first talked to will tell me that, hey, we just need more students. That's all. Just bring them through the door. We've got everything else. Um, that's always that's always the starting point, but there's always layers. The layers is your pricing right? Is your delivery right? Are you keeping students? Um, pricing, delivery, like those are big components, especially pricing. Um, and then just environment. Do you have all the other aspects of your business taken care of? So so do research, make sure that the people that you're getting to help have actually done the things that they said they can do. For us, my focus, my expertise is marketing. That side of the game. When it comes to, I cannot teach anybody how to run a better class, um, but I have great people in my community that are lifelong martial artists, and that's where their expertise come in
Hmm.
within the community environment. So yeah, so really make sure that people can help you, and it's not just about the program, but will they be available to coach? For us, it's three components: it's community, coaching, and content. And it's got to be a blend of all three. Content, it's great to uh, watch in your own time and review. Community is that instant support that you can get. Are there people that you can hop on a call with and get expertise from different aspects and different parts of the world? And then
Hmm.
coaching, is somebody going to help you actually hold you accountable to do the thing that you want to do?
Hmm.
um, that's really important, because it's all good and well you get things to do, but if no one's going to hold you accountable and get you to do it, then it's just information and things for the sake of learning.
Right.
So make sure you got someone that's going to hold you to your word.
Well, that's a great point to stop on right there, and I agree that accountability is a huge part of coaching in any, whether it's business, in sports, in fitness. The accountability factor is huge. So, thank you for your time. Thanks for getting up
Thank
so
you.
early on your watch. But just appreciate you sharing your story and some information today. So, I will send you a link of this video, and hope to catch up again soon. And wish you all the best.
Thanks so much, Jason.
All right. Take care, guys. We'll see you back next Monday. We'll be back at our regular 12 o'clock time. And we got guests every Monday. Go check out our YouTube channel, simply Master Jason Flame, easy to find. Also, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, you name it. We're there. We'll see you soon. Take care, George.
Cheers, Jason.
All right, bye bye.